Hence he chose the word nirvana rather than realization.
Osho once said, Buddha is absolutely for freedom, freedom from everything, even freedom from freedom. This paradoxical statement holds the key to understanding a shocking truth about Buddhism that few people realize. Are you prepared to challenge your preconceptions about Buddhism? At the heart of this revelation lies the concept of nirvana, which Osho describes as mysterious and unpolluted. Unlike common perceptions of spiritual enlightenment as a state of blissful achievement, nirvana carries a more enigmatic essence. The term itself, derived from blowing off the candle, signifies the extinguishing of the self, a self perpetuated by our desires and attachments. This leads us to a profound question. What if the path to true enlightenment involves letting go of the very desire for enlightenment itself? According to Osho's interpretation of Buddha's teachings, genuine freedom might paradoxically require liberation from the pursuit of liberation. This perspective challenges us to reconsider our approach to spiritual growth and the nature of ultimate reality, the illusion of spiritual achievement. As we peel back the layers of Buddhist philosophy, a startling realization emerges. What if the very concept of spiritual achievement is an illusion? Osho's interpretation of Buddha's teachings suggests that our quest for enlightenment might be the very thing keeping us from experiencing true freedom. Are we unknowingly trapping ourselves in a cycle of spiritual materialism? This question leads us to examine the term nirvana more closely. Unlike other spiritual concepts, such as moksha or liberation, nirvana carries a unique connotation. The word itself, meaning to blow out or extinguish, hints at a profound truth about the nature of enlightenment. Buddha's choice of this term was deliberate and carries significant implications for spiritual seekers. According to Osho, the desire for enlightenment itself creates tension within us. This tension, ironically, becomes a barrier to achieving the very state we seek. Nirvana, in its purest form, represents freedom from all desires, including the desire for spiritual attainment. This perspective challenges us to reconsider our approach to spiritual growth and the nature of ultimate reality. Consider how spiritual achievements can inadvertently fuel the ego. We might pride ourselves on our meditation practice, our knowledge of sacred texts, or our ability to maintain equanimity in difficult situations. While these are undoubtedly positive traits, attachment to them as personal achievements can reinforce the very sense of self that Buddhism seeks to transcend. Osho's critique extends beyond individual spiritual practices to traditional religious structures as a whole. He argues that these imposed limitations often conflict with Buddha's original teachings on self-discovery and authenticity. As Osho states, Buddha does not give you any religious education. He wants you simply to be yourself, whatever it is. That is your religion, to be yourself. This emphasis on personal authenticity stands in stark contrast to the rigid dogmas and hierarchies often associated with organized religion. This perspective invites us to question the very nature of spiritual progress. Are we truly seeking liberation, or are we simply exchanging one form of attachment for another? The structures and practices we've come to associate with spiritual growth might paradoxically be reinforcing the ego they claim to dissolve. Osho's interpretation of Buddha's teachings encourages us to look beyond the conventional understanding of spiritual achievement. Instead of striving for a particular state or experience, we're invited to embrace a path of radical authenticity and self-discovery. This approach aligns more closely with Buddha's original intent, focusing on personal experience rather than adherence to external standards or expectations. The revolutionary nature of Buddha's teachings. But what if Buddha's teachings were even more radical than we thought? Osho proposes a perspective that shatters our conventional understanding of Buddhism. Could the very essence of Buddha's message be about dismantling spiritual hierarchies rather than creating new ones. According to Osho, Buddha stands as an enlightened revolutionary, a figure whose teachings prioritize individual freedom over the creation of followers. This view starkly contrasts with the common perception of Buddha as a peaceful sage, revealing a more dynamic and transformative aspect of his philosophy. Osho emphasizes, Buddha stands alone, totally for freedom. Without freedom, man cannot know his ultimate mystery. Chained, he cannot move his wings into the sky and cannot go into the beyond. One of the most striking aspects of Buddha's approach, as interpreted by Osho, is his acceptance of only fellow travelers rather than followers. This radical stance promotes individual dignity and personal spiritual journeys. Osho notes, he would not accept followers for the simple reason that to accept a follower is to destroy his dignity. This perspective encourages each person to embark on their own path of self-discovery, free from the constraints of imposed structures or dogmas. Osho contrasts Buddha's teachings with those of other religious leaders, who often create a beautiful prison cell for their followers. He argues that Buddha's focus on self-discovery, rather than adherence to a rigid doctrine, represents a significant departure from traditional religious practices. This approach invites us to question the very nature of spiritual guidance and authority. However, Osho suggests that many have misunderstood Buddha's legacy, viewing his teachings as mere philosophy rather than a call to experience silence and being. He observes, even in the countries where Buddhism is a national religion, it has become an intellectual philosophy. Zazen, the original contribution of the man, has disappeared. This insight challenges us to reconsider how we engage with spiritual teachings, emphasizing direct experience over intellectual understanding. Osho encourages us to deeply absorb Buddha's teachings without simply becoming followers. He asserts, my message is, understand Gautam Buddha, but don't be a Buddhist. Do not follow. Let the understanding be absorbed by your intelligence, but let it become yours. This perspective highlights the importance of personal experience and transformation over dogmatic adherence to a set of beliefs or practices. By describing Buddha as an enlightened revolutionary, Osho redefines the role of spirituality in a modern context. He suggests that Buddha's teachings encourage individuals to explore their own spiritual journeys rather than conforming to established religious norms. This interpretation invites us to approach spirituality with a fresh perspective, free from the baggage of traditional religious structures. Compassion, the key to authentic enlightenment. As we explore the depths of Buddha's teachings, a startling realization emerges. What if the most crucial step towards enlightenment isn't about retreating from the world, but engaging with it more deeply? Osho's interpretation of Buddha's wisdom unveils a counterintuitive approach that could transform our understanding of spiritual growth. At the heart of this revelation lies a revolutionary concept introduced by Buddha: compassion as a fundamental element of enlightenment. This marked a significant shift in spiritual practice, distinguishing Buddha's teachings from those of previous mystics who focused solely on meditation. According to Osho, this emphasis on compassion represents a historical dividing line, challenging us to reconsider our approach to spiritual development. Osho argues that compassion should be prioritized before meditation, a perspective that turns traditional spiritual practices on their head. This approach fosters a sense of responsibility toward others and transforms enlightenment from a solitary pursuit into a shared experience. By cultivating compassion first, we create a foundation for deeper spiritual practices that extend beyond our individual selves. The implications of this perspective are profound. Osho suggests that if compassion is not cultivated before enlightenment, it may be perceived as a disturbance to one's joy after achieving enlightenment. This could lead to a solitary experience, isolated from the world and others. By prioritizing compassion, we ensure that our spiritual journey remains connected to the world around us, preventing the risk of becoming detached from the very reality we seek to understand. Cultivating compassion in daily life serves as a precursor to deeper spiritual practices. It enables individuals to become more loving and kind before engaging in meditation. This approach aligns with Buddha's teachings, which encourage practitioners to not only seek their own enlightenment, but also to uplift those around them. The result is a ripple effect of compassion and understanding that extends far beyond the individual. Osho highlights that when individuals cultivate compassion, enlightenment becomes infectious. This perspective shifts the focus from individual achievement to collective awakening. Instead of isolated experiences of enlightenment, we create a network of compassionate, awakened beings who support and inspire each other on their spiritual journeys. This understanding challenges us to rethink our spiritual practices. How can we integrate compassion into our journey towards self-discovery and enlightenment? It invites us to look beyond traditional meditation techniques and explore ways to cultivate kindness, empathy, and connection in our daily lives. This might involve acts of service, practicing active listening, or simply being more present and attentive in our interactions with others. Embracing the mystery. As we reflect on Osho's interpretation of Buddhism, we encounter a profound invitation to rethink our spiritual journey. Osho challenges us to move beyond the conventional pursuit of enlightenment and embrace the mystery of nirvana. This perspective encourages us to let go of our attachment to spiritual achievements and instead focus on authentic self-discovery. Osho's insights reveal the revolutionary nature of Buddha's teachings, emphasizing personal freedom over rigid dogma. He reminds us that true understanding comes not from following, but from absorbing and internalizing wisdom. As Osho states, "Understand Gautam Buddha, but don't be a Buddhist. Do not follow. Let the understanding be absorbed by your intelligence, but let it become yours." As you continue on your spiritual path, consider this thought-provoking question. Will you be a follower or a fellow traveler on the journey to true freedom? The answer may reshape your entire approach to spiritual growth and self-realization.